Oh my Lord. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. How is everyone doing on this fantastically monsoon-like Tuesday? It's rained consistently for like 2.5 weeks now, and I don't mind the rain at all. But it would be so lovely to have a bit of summer back again.
It looks like you're caught in the rain because you're lovely here after having a shower.
Only out of the shower.
Is it lovely and fresh when you're after having a shower?
It's great.
Aren't we so? Shouldn't we be okay? All the hair,
Thanks,
molting, and be so grateful. Well, I'm so grateful for running water. You know when you come out of the shower and you're like, oh my god, that felt so good.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, is the foot clear on this?
Yes, because the microphone's now down on that side.
Oh yes, because sometimes I do always say to Ciara, you can't hear us so well.
It's the foot. We blame the foot.
But yeah, the showers are so amazing. I think we're just probably fluffing around the subject that we're going to talk about today.
So I'm a bit nervous about chatting about this subject today, but there's a few reasons around that. I think the initial reason that I decided that I wanted to talk, and when I did my first video, it was around the topic of people needing to connect more and people needing to open up, people needing to
1 second, I'm listening.
be more honest with each other, and people needing to be more connected. And I use the word needing, and it's not that I'm telling you what to do, it's that I'm saying that there is a real need in the world at the minute for people to connect more. And in my opinion, and from my experience, which I'll get into in a minute, when people don't connect and when people don't talk, that's when issues start arising. And you can say it's not that simple, but sometimes it actually is. A lot of the time we go through life expecting things of ourselves that are too much, unnecessary, and too big for us to handle. And especially these days, you'll hear, you know, don't share your burdens with your friends, don't tell other people your problems because they have enough of their own. Don't worry other people with what's going on in your life because they can't handle it.
Don't put your dirty washing out in public. That's such an old-fashioned one, isn't it?
Completely. And so it's all these preconceived notions that we have around what's right and what's wrong. And when we live our lives around what's right and what's wrong, we end up not being ourselves and not being able to speak our truth in the moment that we need to speak it. So that can lead to really bad depression, it can lead to severe anxiety, it can lead to not wanting to leave the house, it can lead to a plethora of addictions, from drugs to drink to food to you name it, and it can lead to it. And the thing that it can lead to in the very end is suicide. And that's something that we don't want to have happen to our loved ones. We certainly don't want to think that anyone in our vicinity or in our circle would ever feel bad enough that they have to do something like that. So the first thing that I'd like to address is I'd really like to address the fact that under no circumstance do I see somebody committing suicide as a selfish act. I absolutely, vehemently disagree with somebody saying that it's selfish. Because when someone is in that mind space, that headspace, that they feel like there's absolutely nothing else that they can do apart from take their own life, it comes with a massive amount of reasons behind it. There's things that they haven't been able to say. There's things that they may have done that they don't want anybody to know because they feel like they're going to be judged. There's things that they may have said to other people that they're carrying for years. There's ways that they might have been being that they feel like they're going to be judged for. And when you're carrying that mountain of stuff on top of you and all of the preconceived notions that you can't talk to anybody about it because you got to keep your shit to yourself, it is a very dangerous place to be. And my whole thought process on this, and when Thelma watched my first video, we came up with that idea. She said to me, why don't we do coffee and chats, or why don't we do our heart to hearts? Because if we can open the door even a little bit, like even a crack open for people to feel more comfortable to talk. I mean, I don't see anything as dirty laundry. I don't see your problems being a burden to me. I don't see your worries making me more worried. If you can talk to me, then that's fantastic because you've been able to talk. If I can talk to Thelma, that's fantastic because I've been able to talk. We all have stuff going on, and it's so important that we start letting go of all of these old-fashioned nonsense notions and really start talking.
Sometimes I think that, you know, like people, as you had just said there, that how people are, what they're going to talk about with you, and they think, oh, I can't, because I can't put my problems onto you, I cannot burden you. But actually sometimes it's refreshing, not what your situation is or what you're going through, but sometimes it's refreshing for us to get out of all the crap that we have in our own lives, to be there for somebody else. It gives us more purpose in that. So, like, you know I've been through so much in my life. Ciara, you've been through so much in your life. And we have always had an open ear to listen to anybody. And people might look at our lives who know us and say, we couldn't burden you with it, or we couldn't talk to you about it. So you got so much on your plate. But actually, it's kind of a bit like, if you want something done, then ask a busy person. It's like, when you've had a lot of trauma in your life, you almost learn to cope with it in better ways, because you've had it for such a long time. You learn how to categorize it, you learn how to put it into a box. It's kind of how we survive it, in a sense, 100%. You know. And then we get so acutely aware of who our friends are, what their personalities are like, what our whole surroundings are like, so that we know which friends we can talk to about different things, which friends won't judge us. And there are the friends that are so blessed that don't have any trauma in their life, or haven't gone through anything major, and that they maybe not be able to offer up the advice that we need or that they need at the time. But we're always there with an open ear, and it's never going to affect all the stuff that we've got going on. In fact, there's something kind of solace, if that's the right word, about someone coming to you with their stuff, and that you know that you're in the same pond, if you like, together. And it's kind of from opening up and talking about it. And you might find that we might all cry together, because it doesn't matter what the story or the topic is. It's about these emotions that we have that are blocked, that we can't get up. And it's only in talking to somebody else about their emotions. Like, if you go to a counsellor, they'll maybe tell you in time, is that they don't really care, not that they don't care, but they're not listening to the story per se. They want to know about the emotions behind it. So, like, if you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed or whatever, and so it's basically about like bringing that to the surface and releasing that. So when you are talking to other friends who've been through stuff, it doesn't matter if they have gone through or not what you were going through. It's about releasing the emotions that we don't know how to express. And it's in that then that we feel that we're being heard. Because too often we can get caught up in the story and get hypnotized into the story, and we go off on tangents of that rather than actually dealing with the emotions of it.
100%. And you know, I talk a lot about happiness and positivity, and I never talk about it with the intention of it to sound woo-woo, because it's not. There's actual science behind positivity, happiness and gratitude. But when it comes to having a very serious issue in your life, something that you feel like you can't deal with, it's really important that you are allowed to face that issue in a really safe space with friends. And it's amazing to go to therapy. Like, it's absolutely fantastic to find the right counsellor, therapist, whatever your thing is, and to go and talk to them. The mental health,
we've been through that ourselves. That's what we know.
Yeah,
we've gone through so many. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
The mental health services do not do this justice in any way, shape or form. And I don't mind being very public saying that. I think that our mental health service and our mental awareness services are absolutely cat altogether. So sometimes when you haven't found that therapist and you haven't found that person that you connect with on a professional level, the only people that you do have left are your friends. And to be able to sit in a circle with friends and say, I'm having a shit time, and you know, I've had a couple of really stupid thoughts. I've thought about killing myself. And for someone to turn around and go, oh my God, what's happening in your life that's made you think like that? Not, oh my God, did you hear what she said to me the other day? She said that she was going to kill herself. I bet it's because of X, Y, and Z. The level of judgment, the level of harshness, the level or the lack of support that can go on between people, it really has to stop. because suicide levels and suicide, the statistics for them are absolutely staggering, absolutely staggering. And it's just not okay. It's not okay for us to not want to do anything. It's not okay for us as a society to not want to take responsibility for what's going on within our own communities. So I'd like to share something, which is exciting.
Which makes me nervous.
Yeah. So I had a really traumatic childhood. I mean, I had sexual abuse in my childhood, and that's something that we will talk about in another story. And I also had sexual assault in my teenage years, and I had a pretty volatile young adulthood. Now, for me, my default is happiness. So regardless of the things that happen in my life, I love life. I love what life is all about. I love everything about life. The things that happen, now this is how I feel and how I think about life. It's not everybody's. No matter what happens, I always know that I can come back to the happiness that's inside me. But I didn't feel like that when I was 25. And at the time, I was going out with somebody, and I was having quite a volatile time living in Dublin. I mean, it was party central, it was great crack, but I wasn't dealing with anything. And I went away to Ibiza on holidays, and I was gone for 8 weeks. And over the course of the 8 weeks, I had constant messages from this person that I was seeing, and you know, how much he missed me and how much he wanted me to come home. Now this is all going to sound very trivial, but I'll get to the point at the end and you'll see why it all happened the way it happened. So he said he wanted me to come home, and he said, you know, how much he loved me. And I was very vulnerable at the time. I hadn't properly dealt with anything that had happened in my childhood. And so I said, I'll come home. And, you know, he was such a giving person. He would put credit on my phone when I was away for the full 8 weeks. He paid for my apartment while I was out there. He paid for my flights home because I was so broke because we couldn't get any work in Ibiza. We danced a few nights and that was it. And when I came home and got into the car beside him, we kissed, and it was just really romantic and really lovely. And he took me home to his parents' house, and all of his family were in the sitting room, and they were all very welcoming. And he sat with his arm around me for the whole time. And I just thought that this was perfect, you know, that this was the person I was meant to be with. And he brought me back to the apartment I was staying in and told me that he was seeing somebody else, and had been for the whole time I was away on holidays. So for me, it was such a slap in the face. It was literally that saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. I didn't have any more energy inside me to give to any of the happiness that I felt. I was done. I had sexual abuse in my childhood. I had sexual assault in my teenagehood. I had a volatile young adulthood, and I didn't have a support network around me. I had people I danced with, I had people I worked with, and I did not have a really close-knit set of friends. Most of my friends were in a very wild state themselves, so being able to have a conversation with any of them was ridiculous. So I went into the apartment that I stayed in with two of the girls I danced with, and they said, are you okay? And I told them what had happened, and I told them like there was nothing in it. Like I told them,
telling someone else's story. There's no emotion behind it.
Like, oh my God, guess what? He's been seeing someone else for the whole time, and he's gone and bought a house, and it's totally fine though. I'm grand, I'm fine. And a calm came over me. And I know that this might be really triggering for people, but it's really important that it's okay to say this, and it's okay to talk about your story. So I got really calm, and I decided to plan what I was going to do. And I went out over the following 2 days, and I bought 100 tablets in different chemists. And on the third day, I decided that I'd go for a walk to a pub that nobody knew about, way up past where my house was. And I took 98 of those tablets in the toilet, and I could feel myself gagging continually. It was a horrible process. It was something that was really hard. Like, it was really, really difficult to actually do that.
Oh, that's so shocking.
It was really hard. So I did that, and on the way walking home, I realized that I actually didn't want to die. And for me, when I hear about suicide, this is the part that actually really gets me, really and truly gets me, because I've been there. So on the way walking home, I was thinking about everything that had happened and everything that had gone on. And by the time I got back to the apartment, I knew that my time had literally come. And I know it can sound dramatic, and it is, it's very dramatic, because it's actually about to happen. So I got back to the apartment and I fell at there was a pavement, a pathway up to the apartment door, and I fell, and I knew that this was it. And I crawled up the pathway to the back door of the apartment, and that was me. I knew that I was going to pass out. I knew that I was going to die, and everything flashed before my eyes. I knew like my name is Ciara, that I didn't want to die. But I also knew that I was about to bang, if I could, on the back door of an apartment that was an apartment block. Nobody was going to hear it. I managed to bang the back door, and that was it. I was gone. I was gone. And all I remember in that last moment where I hit the ground and was gone was a pair of black boots. And whoever that couple was, or that person was, they called the ambulance. I was gone. I called the ambulance. They brought me to the hospital, and I was actually gone. And they pumped my stomach for 24 hours. And for I vomited violently every 15 minutes with the amount of charcoal they were pumping into my system. I wasn't even awake when I was throwing up. I wasn't even there when I was throwing up. But I was so lucky that I had somebody to help me in that moment, that I had somebody who was literally there, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in a higher power, whatever you believe in. I know that I was put here for a specific reason.
Your time wasn't up. Completely.
I have so much more to give. And I knew that in that moment of slipping away. I knew that I have more to give, and there's much more that I need to do and should be doing as a responsibility to everybody that is around me and that comes into my circle. And so a few things happened after that, and that's another story. But today we're focusing on suicide for a reason. For me, I find the hardest thing is knowing that sometimes somebody might not want it to happen when they've already started the process.
Yeah.
And that's the scariest place to be. That is the scariest place to be. So from a person who's been through it, I want to put out there that you, as a relative, as a friend, as whatever, as a colleague, you don't ever want to have to sit and listen to somebody say they were in that position and they were looking for help and somebody helped them. It's a fantastic thing that somebody did, but to get to that point is absolutely unnecessary. And it might sound really easy to say, but there is a solution for everything. But there is no solution if you end your life. There's no solution in that moment for that person. And that person could have been crying out for whatever reason. And people do. And sometimes you won't see it. Sometimes you don't see what people need. Sometimes they don't ask. But they're not asking because they don't feel like they can. So for me today, the whole point of this, I don't mind sharing my story. It's really emotional. It's so emotional because it brings me back to exactly what happened. But I have no problem sharing that because I want people to feel like they can talk. Like it's a conversation. I don't care what's going on in your life. I am willing to help with it. Thelma is exactly the same. And when you have the right tribe in your life, those people are there for you. They're willing to help. They want to help.
Yeah. Can I just say something?
Yeah, of course.
I was thinking about this the other day when, like, in my house after we did the talk on fibromyalgia, and I thought to myself, like, there was so much more that I could have spoke about and showed really my huge emotions that come with it and how sad I am with it. And I'm probably emotional today because we're talking about suicide. But like myself and Ciara, like you might find that we're here and we're brave and we're courageous and we're opening up these topics and everything else. But like the only reason that we can actually like sit here and speak freely about it is because we've done huge work on ourselves. We've had like years of counselling. Like I have definitely in and out of counselling had probably about 3 years after my sexual abuse as well. And I finished after my sexual abuse after about 2 years. And then I went on then after having, I suppose, not that it's anybody's fault, but my parents separating and my nephew, you know, went off to try and commit suicide, but we caught him on time. And just as you say, a plethora of many things that just cascaded one after the other of traumatic, seriously traumatic stuff that I remember going to Father Charlie and I just said like, you know, when is enough? Like, you know, like I had my I miscarried my first, I'd IVF my second, my mother had a stroke the same time I had my IVF. I thought I was going to miscarry when I was meant to be having 72 hours bed rest when my mom had a stroke. So emotional. And then like told that, that there's like, if my mother has another stroke, that, she'll die. And then my sister had like, she was having like issues herself. So I was in A&E getting brain scans with her and my mom upstairs, who can no longer speak or talk or anything. And like, I didn't know if I was going to like carry this baby full time or not. And just, I had more stuff going on after that, like we're told he probably won't survive, and he just kept coming. And I remember saying to him, Father Charlie, like, when is enough, like, and he kept saying, you're not there yet. And I remember thinking, like, my shoulders aren't strong for all these crosses that I have to carry. And like, God, I didn't think this topic was going to be so emotional. I actually was going to say to you that myself and Ciara might just talk about our conversations like there's somebody else's, because we dealt with so much stuff. But I suppose, like, suicide is so painful. Like, I'm so affected by the people who've committed suicide lately in Westport, and I had my own thoughts of suicide last year when I got my anxiety, and I had my own thoughts of suicide when I had been abused and that. And feeling alone and feeling empty, and that like nobody's there to understand and to be there for you. And even counsellors are kind of like just reading up things that like they have learnt in college, or thank God I didn't wear mascara today. That was not intentional. For a reason. It's because I was Russian, but and they're kind of going through their own process, the counsellors, of what they have learned on their courses and from other people's lives and that, But anyway, sorry I went off. Thanks, Anne. It's just hard, like, and it's oftentimes the people who like are dressed nice or not, or just, what I mean is people who act like they've got their shit together and they don't. And it's very difficult. I said to Ciara that I was going to talk about this sometime. I know people mean well, but it's very difficult when I go into SuperValue daily and people are saying to me, so how's your mother? And like, I don't want to talk about my mother because it's heartbreaking. It's not nice that she's had a stroke. Part of it is like she's dead to me, and she's not the same woman, and I know she feels all this. And it's hard to watch her cry when she sees pictures of herself. And then people say, as if that's not bad enough, then they go on and say like, and so, pity face, like, and how's your brother? Because my brother is he's in a wheelchair, and he's had a stroke, or he's had MS. And although Brian is very, very happy in his life, he's so happy, and it's hard for me not to see the disability. But like, they're saying like, oh, how is he? But like, I don't want to be reliving the story every day. Like, I don't want to be saying how my brother is every day. And sometimes people mean well, but a lot of times people only ask me because they feel guilty because they haven't come to see them. And my mother has lost loads of her friends because they don't call to see her anymore. And I understand it's difficult because they don't know how to be around her because she can't speak so much. But she is trying with all of herself to communicate, and she just loves to see people there. But it's difficult, like, I put on this face all the time that, oh, I'm fine and I can handle things and everything is great, but like, really, it's shit behind the scenes. Like, I'm not suicidal, and I'm not just saying that, but I know I went on an aware course, and they said, make sure you ask somebody if they are suicidal. You're not putting thoughts into their head then to commit suicide, because they have a clear enough mindset as to where they want to go with this. So you're not putting thoughts into somebody's head about, oh God, maybe I should commit suicide. If you ask somebody, are you suicidal? That was my worry. But I suppose it's hard to know how to be in the world and how to show somebody your support when they have stuff going on in the background, like someone has cancer or something like that. And it's not always okay to be asking them about these things. And I know people mean well all the time, but it's keeping us in the story on a daily basis. And it's so difficult. Like, some of us are just trying to operate in life and not think about these things. I find it hard to go up to my mother's house because it kills me to see her the way she is. And that's my own stuff that I have to deal with, and the guilt that comes with that, you know.
I think it's really important as well to be aware that when somebody opens up like this, it's completely okay. And so when you're saying, like, don't constantly ask me how I am, that's fairly obvious, because, okay, maybe it's obvious to me.
Well, you can ask me how I am, but don't keep asking me about the sick people in my life.
Yeah. And then when somebody does come to you and sits down and has this is genuine, raw emotion, that you don't have to say, are you okay? That you don't have to say, it's going to be okay. That you don't have to hug them, that you don't have to do anything in that moment, because sometimes that can actually break what they need to do. Like the minute you touch them and the minute you hug them, you're actually stopping them have that a moment of emotion. And that could be something that they actually need to go through. And it's so cathartic. It's so unbelievably cathartic to actually feel your feelings and go through them. But if nobody gives you the opportunity to do that, you can't do it. And everything is inside you and everything is bottled up within you. And it's just not healthy. I mean, myself and Thelma have been friends for a very long time.
I need to interrupt. Just one girl said that she's lost the sound, and maybe it's just her.
Possibly Siobhan.
Can you guys hear us? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Thanks.
So we've been friends since we were kids, and then we took a big giant break in the middle, and we've recently reconnected over the last couple of years, and it's like nothing has changed. But Thelma and I will be very open with each other. I mean, we have been since probably the day we met, more open, I'd say, than any two people would be with each other. We've shared experiences, and we have a tendency to laugh through things that most people would cry at. We have a tendency to be very blunt and very realistic and very open with each other when anything extra happens in our lives. We're in two different places, I think, with raw emotion, possibly because I've gone through the coaching process. But it's so okay to have that level of emotion, and particularly when things are happening one after the other after the other. And again, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter, because if you believe in God, they say that he only gives you what you can handle. If you believe in the law of attraction and you know, the universe, then what you give out, you get back. That can be really hard, because when you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, I didn't give out anything to have half my family get sick. Like, what's that about?
Not in this lifetime.
Not in this lifetime. You know, I'm not a bad person, so why are these things happening? But if you get into that mindset, if you start going down that rabbit hole, it's horrible. It's horrible. It's to realize that things happen. They're not life. They're just happening. It's just something that's happening. But if you can't talk about it, then you're stuck. You're stuck in all of those emotions by yourself. So to be able to say to any of the friends that you have, who you know, and you know your friends, you should know your friends well enough to know if they're having massive issues with whatever, right? Most people will tell someone something. Be that person in another person's life. And this isn't me making anyone wrong. Not one person is wrong for anything that's happened to somebody else in their life. But I'm saying, going forward, be the person who goes, yeah, it's not all over me. Cry, go for it. Let it all out. And let them have that moment, because it's vital. It's so important.
Yeah. And it could just be a thing that, you know, the way some people don't want to talk about their stuff. Like, maybe just if you know that emotions have to be expressed, then maybe just have like a girly night or a lad's night or whatever it is, or mixed sex night, it doesn't matter. The point is that get a movie like Marley and Me, or get a movie of The Notebook or something that you know is going to basically erupt the emotions, so that people can actually cry, because it's in the crying that's the release. Yeah. And I found out something lately that I didn't know, that back in the day, was it in Ireland that started, or where, that they had what's the woman? She's basically like a wailer at a wake.
Oh, a keener. Is she a keener?
And she has to, like, basically with her wailing, it's like the sound of a cry. So it's meant to, like, basically erupt that in us at a wake, that we release and let the tears come and let us cry.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah, because otherwise what happens is that we can block these emotions and just kind of put them away. And like nowadays, say particularly in traumatic death, whether it's suicide or whether it's somebody got taken in a car crash where we didn't have the time to say goodbye, we don't know how to be anymore. So the doctors sometimes give us sedatives just to get us through it. But in fact, what they're actually doing is prolonging the healing process. And sometimes they say, oh, it's just to get us through this time. But actually, it's in that time. It couldn't be any worse. It's your last moments with them on earth, when they're like in the coffin, when they're getting buried, that you should be allowed in that time, if any time, to cry your eyes out and be who it is that, and be what needs to come up, rather than being sedated. By the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it either, if somebody needs to do that, because we all do it in our own time frame, and when we need to do it, and we might have to do it because our kids are there just to get us past something else. So nothing is really wrong in doing whatever it is you want to do. There's a time and a place for everything, I suppose. But it's just that from the old Irish people have said to me back in the day that that's why that lady was there, because for the time of funerals, to basically help us all release all these tears and that, you know.
That was me last night. I watched a movie with Josh called Chasing Mavericks. If you're going to watch a movie, watch it. And I wailed like a banshee by the end of it. You can ask Josh. Like a brain donkey. But it's cathartic. It is so vital to actually feel your goddamn feelings and let them happen. Yeah. We get sad, we get emotional, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get panicky, we have anxiety, we have and it goes through so many different emotions. We're human. We go through so many different emotions on a day-to-day basis. Not everyone is built for happiness all of the time. Yeah. You can have happiness as your default, the thing that you fall back to, but you don't have to be up all of the time. It's not real. It can be fake. Yeah. It's okay to feel exactly how you're feeling and say it.
Yeah. And it's not a weakness either.
Not at all.
If you're showing your vulnerability, you know, I know that I would have felt that way, and I would have thought that just from past conditioning, that when you're showing your vulnerable side, that people kind of tend to walk on you. And if those people do walk on you, as Ciara just say, then they're not your tribe. They're not your people. They're not the ones to surround yourself by. If you're opening up and you're showing your true raw emotions and you're really showing your vulnerability, the friends that are the ones to be there in your life, that'll come and sit on your blanket at a picnic, then they're the ones that will be there to listen, the ones that you can express yourself and know that you can be all who you are, warts and all, and that they're not going to judge you. They're going to be there when you're down. It's more important nearly for a good friend, to be there when you're down than to be there when you're up, you know?
And none of this is a judgment. Just let's put that out there. We're not judging anyone in any situation. Going forward from this on, from the last video I did, from all of our videos, the point that we want to get out is that talking is fantastic. It's fantastic. It's been done for hundreds of years. Talk therapy is not a new thing. The therapists and the counselors talk about it like it's a new thing now. Yeah. And I was reading an article on a famous psychologist or psychotherapist yesterday. He's a guy with a white beard and white hair. I can't remember his name, but he's meant to be this incredible psychologist. And he said yesterday, he did an article and he said that he absolutely disagrees with antidepressants, with sedatives, with medicine. He says that everything he does with all of his clients, he does without medicine. Now he's in his 70s, I think. Yeah. And he's never used it. He said he used to work back in the day in hospitals that did lobotomies. And he was part of many operations where they'd cut a person's brain open and they'd slice away a part of their frontal lobe in order to take away whatever demons the person had or whatever issues that they had. And he said from finishing that job onwards, he decided that wasn't for him, that he didn't want to go down that road and he wanted to see what could be done differently. And he talks about meditation and gratitude. He talks about positivity. He talks about talk therapy. And he says how so many people, as in so many therapists, aren't fully qualified enough in this talk therapy, so it doesn't work for their clients. But we've been doing talk therapy since we've been 8. And I'm being genuinely serious. Talk therapy is allowing someone to feel their feelings and then being there in the moment for them. It's really simple.
And talk therapy, you're not necessarily saying with a counsellor, you're just saying like to your friends.
Exactly. Exactly. Because
Or I was just saying to Ciara there that it's not either with your friends but with your animals.
yeah.
And I might chat about that on Friday actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose there has been a lot of suicides all over the country. There's been a lot of suicides where we live here of all ages. I know a few years back it was suicides of younger children, about were they in their teens, maybe 14, 15.
Covering up how I can freely say I'm having a bad day and it feels good. Awesome, and it's so important. I'm delighted that you've let go of that covering up and actually started saying it, because you know we all have bad days and it is completely okay to say it. And if the person you say it to has a problem with it, they're not your person.
But at least they know where you stand then.
Yeah.
Like they know, oh, you know, Anne's having a bad day today, so therefore, you know what, I'm going to be easier on her, or I might actually help her with some.
So annoying. There's a lady here locally and I absolutely love her. I'm not going to mention names, but every time I meet her and I say to her, how are you? I'm not good today, Ciara. I'm really not good. And I'll always stop and I'll say, and why aren't you good? And she'll say, because of X, Y, and Z. And it's the most incredible interaction I have on any level with a human being, because it's completely honest. It's really raw. It's really true. She's not sitting and wallowing in it. She's just saying, I'm having a bad day. It's not good today. This is why it's not good. And we hug, and then she heads off about her business. And I know in that moment, because of where she's come from, that she feels heard in that moment. And that could be the one thing that she needs throughout the day. That allowance. I give you permission to just be yourself.
I suppose on the other side of that, right? So say like I've got a full plate full of stuff, right? And of course I see the joy in every day, and I don't normally allow myself to sit in this too often, because it's not good either to really sit in your stuff for too long either. There's kind of a balance, and I know it's tricky. We want you guys to talk about your stuff, but at the same time, if possible, try not to wallow in it just for too long, you know, and then get back talking about it again, because we can end up getting depressed in that. But anyway, my point I want to say to you there, Ciara, was, so sometimes we're afraid to ask people how are they, especially if our own plates are so full, because if they say to us, like say if I say to somebody in Super Value today, oh, how are you today? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Really, a lot of people aren't asking them like how are they because they want to know. It's just like a basic polite way of saying hi, you know. And then when they do offload all this stuff onto you, like, oh Jesus, well, I didn't want them to go through all that. I know that can be the response sometimes, and maybe you're very busy. But if somebody does say, I'm not good today, I know part of you can feel like, oh my God, like they don't feel good today, so how am I going to be in this? How do I react and everything, you know? But they're not always wanting you to fix their situation. It's just that they're also airing to you, oh, I'm not great today. The same as they'd say, oh, I am great today. They may not want to get into it with you. And so how, Ciara, do you think, how would you respond if someone says, oh, I'm not great today? What are the different types of responses if somebody doesn't want to get into it?
That's the thing, is that you can say very easily, do you want to talk about it? And you can be that matter of fact, because we put so much complicated emotions around things that don't need to be complicated. So if somebody says to you, I'm not that great today, you'll kind of know in their tone of voice if they're into a conversation. If they're in the milk aisle in Tesco's, they might not be into the conversation of telling you what's going on. You can offer if you want, and again, this is about self-care just as much as anything else. If you aren't in a headspace in that moment, there and then in the milk aisle, to have that conversation, you can say, do you want to meet for a coffee? Or will we go for a coffee? You can say, do you need anything from me? You can say whatever you like. You can say, all right, and you can walk on if that's what you're feeling in the moment. But if somebody has taken the time to be vulnerable with you, so one of my gifts is I know how to meet people where they are. And I understand people better than they understand themselves sometimes, most of the time. And I'll meet people in Tesco's in the milk aisle and I'll say, how are you? And I'll give them a hug and they will burst into tears. And there are a number of people who may watch this video and tell you that is the truth. And it's in those moments, that's my timer for Josh and his electronics. It's in those moments where I get the opportunity to say, right, listen, do you want to have a chat about it? And with me, they tend to chat about it in the milk aisle in Tesco's. And that's fine, that's fine.
I had to get the same thing.
Yeah, because
I think because we talked about before, like the law of attraction and what you put out, you receive.
Yeah.
And that who you are, you attract. So in that, say you're an open and honest person. So I think that, you know, people have this, you just have this vibe about you, you know, that people know they can come and chat to you. If you're a grumpy old soul, you tend to attract grumpy old souls sometimes, you know. So I think because you're so open and lovable and that, and you're a ray of light, that people know that they can come to you and speak to you and that. Do you know what I mean?
So yeah, I mean, you can answer in any way you want when somebody asks.
You can also say no, that basically if you don't want to.
Of course.
You know, you're not, like, if you've got stuff going on yourself and the time isn't right, you can say, I'm sorry that you're not feeling well today, you know. I'd love to chat, but actually now is not a really good time. But if that is the case, then maybe do follow up. Do you know what I mean? And just check in. Don't say now is not the right time, at least I'm hanging, because that might increase their massive vulnerability and think, see, I wasn't heard, and now I'm embarrassed to see that person again. So just maybe follow up again, but you can say that maybe it's not the right time, or, you know.
And just 2 points on that. Bear in mind, we're talking about real issues. So when a person has a real issue, it's something that's really effective. It's affecting them and affecting them. I'm not talking about, you know, whoever walks up to you and starts gossiping about other people. I'm not talking about that. You don't have to give that airtime. And if you're the type of person that's you know, gossiping about other people, then have a look at that and maybe stop, because what you give out, you attract. So it's not about having a bitch and a moan. That's not what we're talking about here. It's about somebody who has something that they do really need to get off their chest. The other thing is, and a tip that I was given, which I really, really love and I'm happy to share here, is, and it can be hard, it can be really hard, because again, we've been conditioned to sit in our crap and to tell our story as many times as possible if we're in that mind space. But if something terrible happens in your life, now I'm not talking about death, because that's a whole other ballgame, and grief can take as long as it takes. I'm talking about when something happens, give yourself a time limit on how long you're going to sit in it, right? Whatever, if you break up with someone, maybe 3 months is your time limit. You're going to give yourself 3 months to listen to all of the songs and watch all of the movies and do all of that stuff and have all the conversations. And at the end of the 3 months, you are going to have that time limit where you're going to give yourself the respect to move on. And if you can apply that in the situations that you're in, if somebody says something to you that hurts your feelings, you can give yourself a time limit of how long you're going to feel bad about it and move on. This sometimes doesn't apply when a situation is really big, because we can't see outside it. And when we can't see outside it, we do things that act or that are outside of the norm. And that can be when you actually have people go down the route of suicide. So being aware, giving yourself a time limit, talking, crying, cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's absolutely nothing wrong with crying. It's fantastic.
Or if it is to laugh, like if your default is to laugh, then laugh.
That's ours.
Yeah, I know. This girl, her mother died fairly suddenly, and she couldn't express it, and she was like, shut down, I'm not talking about it. So she actually went to kickboxing, where she actually had to punch a bag, and she let all of her emotions out that way.
Brilliant.
You know.
Yeah.
I know Joe Dispenza had said something. The guy that trains your mind, he had given an example of 2 women, and I think these were true examples, that 2 women, both were separated, their husbands left them, whatever. Now there was different, they both had their own different stories. One of them wallowed in it and the other one didn't, and each of them were equally as heartbroken. The one that didn't wallow in it ended up having a fulfilled life. Just stuff kind of came at her that she could have never expected, and ended up meeting somebody else, and everything was just ended up being amazing for her. That mightn't always happen, but because she was just like, you know what, that's done, and he's done this to me, and I am better than that, and it's not, that's his story and I've got my story to live. I'm not going to allow his decision to affect me for the rest of my life. Because you give them your power again when you allow them to kind of have a hold on you over that. Now I know that's more, it's difficult and it's easier said than done, and the other woman ended up, I have to be careful how I say this, getting sick.
Okay.
However that happened, we might go into that some other time, about staying stuck and stuff, and then how sickness can arise from it and stuff like that, you know. But to go back into the suicide topic again, which is a really difficult one, as I was saying, there was a good few younger kids that happened to here years ago, and this time around it's been a lot of mothers, like older generation, like of ourselves, and a little bit older than that. And that's none of them are easy. Everything is really difficult. But I think from a mother's perspective, sometimes there can be a lot of judgment when a mother dies by suicide, because why could you do this to her kids and all that kind of stuff. And as you were saying earlier, and I completely agree with it as well, that it's not that it's selfish. You might think it's that if you're a relative of the person that died, you might think it's selfish for a period of time. But when you really kind of come away from it and the emotions kind of settle a bit, you come to realize that it was probably the most difficult decision they've ever to make in their life, because they have weighed up all the pros and weighed up all the cons. And yes, possibly felt like they were backed into a corner, that they couldn't express what was going on, because for them it was harder to show their vulnerability and how much, if it is the case that they felt, excuse my language, they fucked up. For whatever reason they feel like they fucked up, that they're not worth being on earth, that they have got nothing to offer. And I'm only saying these kind of things because when I had a suicidal thought last year, through my anxiety, I remember like looking at the kids and just thinking, because my mind had just changed, and I remember just looking at my kids in the sitting room and I was thinking to myself, God, you know, would they be better off without me, you know, and what do I have to offer them anyways, you know. And that was only, say, for a split second, and then that time passed, and I give off to myself as well, which isn't great either, and say, Thelma, what the fuck is wrong with you, like, you know. And then I had a huge cry about it in my bedroom, going, I never ever want to be in that place again, that I ever think about doing that. And I am very lucky in that, and I feel very blessed and fortunate that I could be so fucking hard on myself and say, you are never to have that thought process again. And there's a huge amount of emotion that comes with that, like anger, frustration, dread, like shame that I even thought it, and just, I suppose, hit a low self-worth and didn't know how to express it, and didn't have, say, of course I chat to my husband and stuff like that, but there's times you don't want to burden him as well, and it's a tricky one. But some people get those thoughts on a continuous basis and have nowhere to put them. And
don't understand why they're having them.
No.
And don't understand where they've came from, because they haven't thought about what's going on in their lives, and they haven't kind of taken it out. You know, if you look at a problem that you're having like something that you have to take out and address in front of you, like a crowd or like a person or like a friend, that it's not something that has to stay on your inside, that it's something that you can take out, have a look at. And that can be quite hard as well, to detach yourself from the issue that you have and understand that it's just an issue. It's just a something, and it's there and it's in front of you, and it has no real hold over you unless you allow it to have. The moment that you allow it to have that hold on you, and that you take it on as part of yourself, is when everything can go pear-shaped. When you take it out and you hold it away and you go, right, okay, so this is shit and I feel like crap and I don't know what to do about it, but it's just it. And then you can start thinking about, maybe if you're sorry for something, maybe if you think you've done something wrong, but maybe it's not that bad after all. You know, whatever the thing is that's made you feel this bad, it's just a thing. And I can say that. I can say that because I've been there. And I can say that not because I'm trying to trivialize anything to do with suicide, but because I get it. So it's figuring out that thing and being vulnerable and honest enough to take it out of yourself and say, ooh, fuck, okay? I don't know what this crap is.
And the thing about it is, on that, Ciara, as well, is that, like, say if a parent had an affair, say if they've had multiple affairs, say if they're an alcoholic, say if they've gambled away their house, and they're like, holy shit, or they've lost their job and they're the only sole incomer into the family, right? That is all really hard stuff. That's all monumental stuff that is really going to affect your life, your family's life, and everything else. But holy shit, it is all fixable, right? It's all fixable. We've all made mistakes. And okay, fine, you might have made the 100th mistake, and you will learn from that, whatever learning is in that from you, whether your partner eventually leaves you because of it or whatever, and your kids might speak to you for a while later, right? But there is healing in time. And it's better to have a really shit turbulent 5 years where everything is thrown up in the air and maybe you hit rock bottom, but they, at the end of the day, will forgive. or even if they take a long time to forgive till their own deathbed, they still would prefer to have you living than not to living.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it might seem easy for us to say this, you know, but nothing is easy about having all of these issues. Nothing is easy about it. But if we open up the lines of communication, and if we can just all stand together and just be there for one another and talk with one another, even don't talk, just call around for a cup of tea and just sit with somebody, go for a walk and talk about nothing.
Yeah.
Just show up. And what is it I want to say really? Show up and be there in real time, with real experience, and be in the moment. If you're going to make the effort to be with somebody, then don't have your phones blinging all the time. Don't be sidetracked about somebody who's waving at you across the way. Like really, 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 really be in that moment with somebody, like real genuine connection. I think that when you know you have that, that's worth its weight in gold. That 5 minutes is worth 3 hours of talking bullshit. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Completely. I think we've been blessed because we're so open that we've had that open connection from the very start. And for anyone who is, look at your friends, look at your circle. And I'm not saying that anyone is wrong or anyone is bad in a circle. But if you're not getting that energy from someone, and it's not just about a relationship, like it's not just about a marriage or a boyfriend and girlfriend thing. There is a person out there for everyone. There are people out there for everyone who will give you the love that you may not get. And this is okay too. Some relationships, some husband and wife teams or boyfriend and girlfriend teams, the boyfriend or the girlfriend might not be the person to fill your cup. First of all, fill your own cup, right? And but what I mean by that is love yourself before you need somebody else to love you. 100%. But if you're not getting it from your partner, you love them and they love you, but they just don't have the capacity to be the person that you need them to be in that situation, then you've got friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't give enough substance to our friends. Like the friends that you have in your life, if they're the right friends, will literally raise you up from the crap anytime you have it.
They want you to grow. They
Absolutely.
Want you to prosper. But if you find that a friend doesn't really want you to grow or is jealous of you, puts you down if you've had a win or if you have excelled, they're not your friends. And there's something I want to say to you there as well is, do you know what you said, like love yourself first? Everything has a ripple effect. Start with yourself first before you look outside at your friends. Look at yourself first and see, am I a good friend? What could I do better to offer up? What could I do more to offer to my friendships, to my friends? Am I real? Am I authentic? Do I bitch? Do I gossip about them? Do I do this, that and the other? If you're happy doing whatever you're doing, because whatever you do, you get back. So if you're going to bitch about your friends, they're going to bitch about you. It's the friends that you have, manifested into your life. If you're going to be real with your friends and you want them to grow and you want them to prosper, then start with that yourself first. Offer that first to everybody else, to your neighbours, to everybody that you meet. And that surely will come back to you. I'm telling you, it will come back to you. It may not be this month, it may not be this year, but it will come back to you. It will come back to you slowly, and just believe in that. Like I really, really strongly believe in manifestation. Like what you put out, you receive.
And bear in mind that if you're in a big black hole and you have hit rock bottom and somebody opens up to you and somebody says how they're feeling, it can actually, like you said, close to the beginning of our conversation, it can actually pull you out of your own shit for a few minutes to see something from someone else's perspective. That in itself can be a catalyst for change. So
helps you grow as a person.
Totally.
Because they're not, you might think they have loaded their shit on top of you. You might think that, right? But if you were to sit back and really like take your emotion out of it and see what's actually happening here, see the dance that's happening here. Okay, a friend has come to me and told me, this actually happened to me, I didn't know how to respond when my friend rang me and told me she's at the point and basically she wanted to jump in, her counsellor didn't answer the phone. So I had to talk her down and then she came to my house and I swear to God, I was like a swan. Might have looked graceful, might have sounded graceful, but fuck me, excuse my language, I was like paddling like a little racehorse underneath, and she came to my house. But when I stepped back from that and all that kind of subsided, and thank God she's okay now, not just because of me, but because of everything that happened. You grow as a person.
100%.
I grew.
Yeah.
She gifted me that
Yeah.
that I could actually look inside myself and help me grow as a person.
Mhm.
So it's not all about, say, it's not all negative. Things happen for a reason. If somebody tells you they're not right, or there's something wrong with them, or that they're suicidal, this is actually a gift for you. It's a gift for you to grow in yourself, to be the best person that you can be. Like, if any of you are religious, and I think it's in Buddhism, I think it's in Catholicism, I think it's nearly in every ism, basically, that you're there to serve others. And in giving, you receive, and all the rest, whatever. Basically, it's a lovely circle of just offering up the hand of friendship and being there for one another.
Yeah. And I think maybe we'll finish on this, and I see if I have anything to say. 2 things. Being aware is vital. It's the first step to everything. It's being aware of yourself, being aware of the world around you, being aware of how you're being in the world, being aware of how to be your very best self. And I don't mean that any of you or us aren't good enough. We are, but it's how to be the best version of yourself all the time. That really authentic you on the inside. And a lot of the times we're not willing to do the work. Well, let me tell you something. There's 2 things that everyone can start doing today, right? If you want to look at yourself, if you want to work on what's going on the inside, if you really want to change life and make it better for yourself first, for your family, for your friends, and for everyone in the wider circle, then meditation is fantastic. Trust me when I say I was not a meditator, and I'm only doing it 3 weeks and I'm finding it fantastic. And there are huge different types of meditations you can do. But Joe Dispenza is an absolute legend. How he does his meditations and the way he brings you through them is fantastic. But if you want something really simple, then go out and buy yourself the book by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
The Power of Now, and I think the other one is A New Earth.
To say the New Earth is even better than the...
Yeah. So I'd nearly say go and buy the New Earth first. And this is where the decision to be the best version of yourself comes into play. Are you worth enough to go and buy a book? Because it could be the changing of your entire life.
Are you worth enough to give yourself the time to read the book?
Exactly. Do you have enough self-respect for yourself, regardless of your situation, to go and buy a book? A book.
Yeah.
It's a one book, right? And imagine if that one book changed the course of your life for the better. And by doing that, the ripple effect would be it would change the course of your kid's life, your partner's life, your friend's life, and all of the wider circle in your life. And it's a book.
Yeah.
So that's Eckhart Tolle, and it's A New Earth, and The Power of Now. The Power of Now is very deep. It's very deep. You might not be ready for it. That's okay. A New Earth is meant to be a lot better. I haven't read it yet. I've read The Power of Now. It will bring up a lot of questions. It will make you think things. But guess what? Thinking things is really good because you're going to start thinking them for yourself.
Yeah.
We've had enough of all the nonsense, of all the learned preconceived notions that we've all been taught. People who taught them to us didn't know any different. But we have the opportunity right now.
We're far more educated now. We now know the psychological effects that everything has on us, and all the ripple effects in that.
And we have the power to choose what happens next.
If I can offer up anything to finish up, because I have to go to the hospital with my son, if I can offer up anything to you guys, it's to be kind. If you can be anything, please be kind to others. You do not know where the shoe hurts. People can look one way and they can completely be the opposite. You don't know what battle that anybody is fighting behind the scenes. You don't know. You're only seeing part of the jigsaw. Like, why didn't that person let me out when I was driving? Or why did that person speak to me such a way? Aren't they such an asshole? Or I've always been nice to them. Always know. At every moment, you're only seeing part of the jigsaw. So if you can be anything, please be kind.
Absolutely. And go and buy the book.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching. And we know it was a big one.
We did it.
High five.
Okay.
Love you all. Mwah. Take care, guys. Have a great Tuesday.